people out there that are always worried about showing up and being truly themselves. Everyone filters out parts of themselves online.
And that's where a lot of people feel stuck right now. You can be doing great work and still feel invisible. So what actually matters now, and how do you show up without losing who you are in the process? Welcome to the DesignRush podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Today, I'm joined by Goldie Chan, founder of Warm Robots, LinkedIn top voice, keynote speaker, and best-selling author of personal branding for introverts, known for helping leaders and professionals understand how reputation and presence work in today's digital world. We talk about why it feels harder to stand out today, whether showing up online is becoming part of professional growth, and how to build trust and recognition without becoming someone you're not. If you've ever wondered whether great work is still enough on its own, this conversation is for you. Subscribe and let's get into it. Hey Goldie, it is so great to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining. You know, we were actually chatting off air, as they say. You mentioned something about a film that you are currently busy with. I do want to find out more about this before we continue with the conversation. Please do tell.
Yeah, so I helped co-produce a short film called POW, and yesterday, it won an award. I think it's won 14 awards at this point. It's really great. If you want to go watch it, it's called POW. So look up POW FNX on YouTube and you can see the whole short film. It's about a young native kid who is looking for a place to charge his Game Boy or his little game machine at a powwow. And it's done with a mostly indigenous cast and crew. So it's really, really cool. It's fun to always do things, I think, on the side in addition to the regular work that I do.
I think that's absolutely wonderful and congratulations.
Thank you.
Immensely proud. I do kind of watch you from the sidelines, and I have to say that it's actually been a pleasure to see in the past 2 to 3 years or so just how your brand has grown and just where you've seen yourself currently. And so I want to get now stuck into the deep sort of part of our conversation right now. I mean, I've always been curious about this myself. I've been an introvert growing up, and then I later became an extrovert. And I always wondered about the definition of that, because I do find myself had a tendency to sometimes become introverted, even though I'm technically an extrovert right now. So if you were to actually define, exactly what it means to be an introvert, what would you say that is?
Yeah, so I think of an introvert as someone when you are at, say, a party or social event, and you are talking to the most interesting stranger in the room. And when you're talking to that most interesting stranger in the room, you have so much in common. Your energy kind of just goes down over time. I find that is, to me, such a good example of what an introvert really is versus if you're an extrovert. If you're purely on the extrovert side of the spectrum, you'll likely find your energy levels going up and up and up as you're talking to that person. And an introvert needs to replenish their battery over time, their energy over time.
If one were to look at social media itself, I mean, there's just so much going on right now in the ether. And I think sometimes one can get kind of overwhelmed, with regards to what it is that you need to do and how exactly you would tackle this when you're looking at yourself from a career perspective. And so would you then feel then social media is actually now a requirement for career growth if one is trying to improve one's career or step out?
Yeah, I think that social media now is a requirement to build a personal brand, mostly because so many of us already have a personal brand online without even knowing it. So when we have our Instagram accounts, when we have our different social media that we have just for friends and family, what we don't know is sometimes our prospective employers or clients, they could be looking at that social media too, because it is the first thing that people, I think, look at is our digital footprint. So instead of leaving that to the wild, I think it's really good to be able to think about how you can curate or be really thoughtful about how you're presenting yourself.
If I were to think a little bit about this and I think to myself, oh, you know what, I can actually succeed professionally without being visible online, would you say that's even a thought one should have in the first place, or not at all?
I think it really depends on what you do for a living. A great example of this is one of my friends. She is a type of doctor that there are only 6 of her types of doctor people in the world. And so her role is so hyper specific. In fact, all the hospitals that would hire her for her hyper specific role all know who she is. So she gets all of her jobs through word of mouth, through phone calls. So she never gets her jobs through an email. It's always a phone call where they physically call her, and she gets all of her roles through referrals where people know her and they know the work that she's done in the hospitals that she's worked in. And for her, she doesn't need social media for that part of her world because it's already being taken care of. However, I will say that she is a wine enthusiast and she hosts these amazing wine clubs and things like that. And because of that, she has social media for that. So she has an entire brand for this, what some people would call side hobby, but I really think of it almost as her second career because she hosts workshops, she engages with her community, she does all this, and she does it using social media, but she doesn't use social media for what I would say was her main job, right? For her doctor work, because that is 100% referral and doesn't require it. So it really depends on what it is, first of all, you do for a living, and does it even require social media? Do you get your jobs through social media, or is it through traditional word of mouth and referrals? I'm finding, though, more and more, I'd say maybe 80% of all jobs out there are benefited from being on social media in the right way.
So why would you then say it actually feels a bit harder to get noticed today?
Yeah, I think the other thing is because it's so beneficial to be online and to be busy on social media, I think that's why there's so many more people who are on social media and trying to be present. I think back to when I first started doing videos on LinkedIn. I was in the beta in end of 2017, 2018. And when I was in the beta, there were less than 100 people doing video with me. In fact, when I first started, there was less than 20 people doing video with me, and we're all in the beta together. And then when it started to open up more widely, honestly, there was still such a path to adoption that there was probably less than 100 active people creating video content at the time. Fast forward to now, and there's so many more people who are creating video, who are creating content on LinkedIn in general. And you just have so much more competition to be seen. And that's true across every platform. All of the platforms are so busy. There's so many more people who are active on them that it's hard to be seen. That being said, I think so many people give up before they even try. So they say, it's too hard to even start. So then they don't bother to start at all, which is, of course, also to me a mistake because you can start tomorrow and you can build a brand that is very unique and that stands out from the crowd, or quite frankly, differentiates you just enough that you start to get the right clients and you start to get the right attention that you want.
Would you then say that posting then does need to become a very regular part of doing your job, in essence?
Yes, I think that you need to have a regular cadence with how you post. So I think it's helpful to have a certain level of consistency. So when you're posting over time instead of posting all at once. That being said, we have now all of these great social media scheduling tools and all of these things that we can use, right? So that if once a month you post 30 evergreen pieces of content into your scheduling tool, you can have that then go out onto various social media platforms. So that's the power of also thinking strategically about how you're posting and when you're posting, because you can be present all the time on social media it just requires a little bit of planning and or hiring the right team. I think a lot of people say, well, I don't have the resources to hire, but you can hire a lot of part-time people now that are well within most people's budgets. So it's really a matter of finding the right people to work with.
I know that some of us do get a bit of FOMO, when we go offline. And sometimes you also do need to take a bit of a break. I guess there's something to be said about there being a balance between everything, even if it is that you are having to take care of your brand and that you have to have your brand be recognized within the right circles, etc., etc. But do you then think that people are missing opportunities in its totality by staying offline?
Yeah, I think that it's helpful to take breaks. I myself have taken very long breaks from social media before. What's helpful about taking a break is if you know that you still need to be consistently posting, is that once again, either hire or schedule. And that's totally fine that maybe you aren't posting yourself every single day, but you're having someone else post for you, or in terms of scheduling tools, something else posting for you that you've scheduled in yourself. But I think it's also okay to just simply take time off of posting. I think a lot of people also worry once they get really regular that, oh my gosh, if I take a month off, then it's all over. And that's not the case, right? So it's really, really easy, I think, to get hard on yourself when you're first starting out and you're starting to get into a cadence of posting, to be like, I need to do it this way. I need to do this. I need to do that, and put the need into that. But I think that instead of thinking that way, it's so much healthier and better to think, okay, what can I reasonably do? But once again, keeping up a certain level of consistency. So if you know that you can post once a month, maybe when you post that once a month, that you make sure that you schedule posts for every week. So you schedule 4 posts for that month. Or maybe when you know that you are going to want to take some time off, that you hire a social media person who can then help you post for the next month, and you give them, say, quotes that you like, or you say, here's all my past posts. Can you, retake these and then repost them as evergreen posts, right? Repurpose. I think that that's another way, so that if you need to take a break yourself, but don't want to visibly take a break on your social media platforms, that's something to do.
Social media itself has obviously changed how success is recognized. And what I'm kind of curious about is, do you now need a personal brand to definitely grow your career now? Is this like a non-negotiable?
In the case of my friend who's a doctor, she does not need a personal brand because it is 100% her skill set, right? It is her skill set. And to a certain extent, it is her own personal brand, but it's a very word of mouth personal brand. And I think oftentimes when we talk about personal brand these days, what we mean is an online personal brand. It is very hard to separate the online from the offline. But yes, I believe that most jobs require a personal brand now, because it is so helpful to be recognized within your peer group. It's helpful to be recognized, especially if you're an entrepreneur, within your potential clients or customers. It's also helpful if you are in corporate, if you are climbing up the corporate ladder at work, that you are internally recognized, because then you will get more opportunities and you'll get the ability to chat with more people over time and be able to work with more internal groups. And that, of course, that kind of positive visibility can help you with your career in the long run, even if you aren't, say, doing public facing personal branding. It's still personal branding.
I guess there's also, is something to be said about trust as well, especially if you're looking at it from a business perspective. So people would then be more trusting of you, individuals, companies, etc., because, they see you, they see what you're doing, and obviously you're making yourself quite visible.
Yes, I think trust is so important. And, another term that I haven't brought up yet is reputation. So to me, personal branding is what people say. reputation is the story that people tell when you're not in the room, and personal branding is a story that you tell when you are in the room. And reputation has a lot to do with trust, right? So I'm so glad you brought up trust, because trust is how much you are believed and respected in that room that you want to show up in. And so if you are a trusted source, once again, let's take the 9 to 5 person, the person who works in corporate. That person, if they want to be trusted at work, they need to be respected in those rooms. They need to have other people vouch for them in those rooms. So it's really important that you have that level of trust with your personal brand.
I think it's so important for us to have this conversation about how do you stay authentic while you are still staying visible. What would you have to say to that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, to break down what the definition of authentic is how do you stay true to your brand? How to stay true to the essence of your brand while consistently showing up, right? I think that's the way to maybe translate what you just said into different words that are a little less overused. And to me, it's okay. One of the things is what is so helpful. So one exercise I do in my book, Personal Branding for Introverts, but I also do with my clients is I do the 3 golden keywords. I have an exercise where I talk about hard keywords, which are your nouns that you describe yourself as. So maybe that's entrepreneur, maybe that's writer, maybe that's engineer. And then the soft keywords are adjectives. So maybe that's warm, insightful, interesting, whatever those adjectives are. And you take one word from your noun category and you take 2 words from your adjective category and you put them together, and that makes your 3 golden keywords. And that is what you filter your entire brand through. So even if you change jobs, you might change that noun, but your adjectives stay the same. You're going to keep some of that personal brand consistent over time. And also for people out there that are always worried about showing up and being truly themselves, I'll say this too. Everyone filters out parts of themselves online. So very few people share 150% of their personal lives, nor is it honestly healthy to do so. But it is, right? It is healthy to show part of your personality. So some people create entire personas that have nothing to do with their personality whatsoever and their person and their personal brand. But it's very helpful, I think, to have a bit of yourself in your personal brand too. So not going completely one way or the other, but having part of what makes you you in your personal brand is incredibly important. And then showing up once again consistently, showing different, I like to think about data points on a graph, like showing little data points. And every single one of your posts, if you're doing online, that's a data point. Showing up and going to a conference where you are a very specific way, that's a data point. I think all of that is very helpful to keep consistent.
And I think it also goes back to trust. Showing that those sides of yourself that is truly you, truly you. Would you then say that younger professionals are actually playing a different visibility game? If you were to, from your experience of what you're seeing at the moment, yeah.
Yes. So I think it depends on how young you even define young professionals. So if we want to go with Gen Z, who are really in their first to maybe even second jobs now in the marketplace, I think that they are growing up, first of all, digitally native. So they are growing up having used social media from really when they were young, using digital products since they were young, which is very different than millennials, which some may be digitally native, but a lot aren't. And when you look at Gen Z and then Gen Alpha, which is not a job age yet, but with Gen Z in particular, I think that they are fighting through the noise even more because they're having to create a digital footprint in the middle of Gen millennials and all these other older folks who have already created their digital footprints online. That being said, I know so many Gen Z who have done this incredibly successfully, right? That because they're digitally native, they're able to navigate and they are able to have a presence that really shines because they know the platforms really well. And of course, one of those platforms being TikTok, which is definitely a younger skewing platform. And that I think Gen Z does such a great job with doing so well on.
But we're talking a lot about, social media helping careers and being amazingly positive. But do you feel that there can also be that added on part where, it's also creating pressure as well?
Yeah, I think that because now online is so important, there is such a pressure to be constantly posting. And constant is different than consistent, right? So constant to me is just saying, okay, I'm going to post all the time. And for me, I know that I blew up on LinkedIn because I posted daily videos. I posted over 800 daily consecutive videos. And I wouldn't recommend that at all because I don't think that, and it wasn't for me, right? I'm not still posting daily consecutive videos every single day. It's just not easy, or is it healthy to post that, especially without a team? So had I gone back in time, I likely would have probably brought on a better team to be very consistent and help me post consistently to keep that streak going. But honestly, I think I ended it at a really good time. Like, I think that over 2 years was a good time to end that streak for me. And so I think posting too much can also have an impact. I will say, I know somebody who posted maybe 100 plus videos on LinkedIn around the same time I did, but they weren't very thoughtful about what they were posting. So yeah, they were reposting news clips. They were basically posting anything, and not a lot of original content, and they did not get traction. And I think the reason they didn't get traction is because they weren't really thinking about their brand. They were just posting whatever they could.
Do you think that visibility is actually going to become a basic skill for most jobs? I think that's a question that a lot of us are asking ourselves. Is this going to be the new moving forward?
Yes, I think that visibility is so important in this day and age because, once again, people are looking online. And also, we should talk about offline visibility. People are looking to meet the next person they will hire at a conference. People are looking to hire who they want to work with, obviously online. With the advent of AI, which is very interesting and complicated, I think it's so fascinating because I had a reporter at a major news outlet reach out to me because he said he inputted introverts into AI and said, who has a book coming out this year? And I was the only result that came up. And so just showing, and I don't think I'm the only book on introverts that's come out this past year. But I do think it's interesting that now we need to show up in a variety of different search engines, and one of them being the AI search engine. And people are searching for information and results there, and they're searching for people to feature, to hire, to work with, to partner with. And it is important to have the visibility across all of those platforms. And of course, to not be overwhelmed, though, by that chase for that visibility.
So do you have any parting words for us? Any advice that you kind of want to leave our audience with, as we're about to end off?
Yes. So first of all, if you are interested, definitely check out my book, Personal Branding for Introverts. It is brand new. And also definitely follow me on LinkedIn and also pretty much most social media platforms out there. Just look up Goldie Chan and I'm on most of them. And of course, I want to say, if you are thinking about building your personal brand and you're an introvert, everything starts with the first step. So don't feel overwhelmed. Just start with the first step of thinking about maybe what platform you want to start with. And one that, of course, that I always recommend for career-oriented people is LinkedIn.
Goldie, thank you so much for joining us on the DesignRush podcast. It was such a pleasure chatting with you today and wishing you all the best for your future endeavors. I look very forward to seeing what's going to be happening in your spaces over the next few years. So I'll be keeping an eye.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune into our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush podcast and stay ahead of the competition.